Hey guys, welcome to Chapter 6 Volumetrics, and this is going to be a fun one because you can create some really cool looks as you saw in the thumbnail. Volumetrics are a super powerful part of rendering and really delivering that final photorealistic results and atmospheric vibe. You can tell when you use volume, sometimes you just get this certain vibe and you really like that look. So we're going to be just covering the basics. I just made this real quick. Let's go ahead and delete it and just talk about the different parameters of the volume before we start using them in a creative sense. So let's go ahead and go up here and let's go to objects and then Octane fog volume, and then you get this fog volume right here. One of my lights is red and one of them is blue, so that's why you're getting this color. If I were to turn this red light off, now you'll see we're just scattering that blue light, which is really just a super high color temperature, like 11,000. So yeah, we get this fog volume. You can use it so many ways. You can do mediums like a fog or a fire. You can generate clouds, so we can do like a random cloud, and if we zoom out, it's going to generate it like that, but it's too big to see right now, so I'm just going to undo that. And I love how many parameters we have to play around with Octane. This is your voxel size. So some of y'all might know when you change your voxels low, it crashes your computer, but many of y'all probably don't know why. So basically, a voxel is a 3D pixel, okay? Simple enough to understand. And these can only be stored on the GPU memory for whatever reason. Maybe in the future they'll change that in the update, but if you get too low on this, you have too many 3D pixels and your GPU runs out of memory and then it crashes the program. So be very careful with this number. I'm going to change mine to 2. Now, before you do that, make sure you have at least 12 gigs of VRAM or 11 gigs of VRAM, because that's how much my graphics card has. So I just happen to know, hey, that's not going to crash my computer here. Okay, cool. If yours is a little bit lower, don't go all the way down to 2. Maybe go to 3 or stay at 5. Cool. So let's go ahead and go back to the volume right there. Okay, so we changed it to 2. You don't really want to mess with this. This is when you render, you can multiply that number. If you want to, you can. Edge feather, that's just going to feather our edges off a bit. And then we can do like a texture feather as well. And then the fun part is when we jump into medium right here. So let's go ahead and jump into volume medium. Okay, cool. We can change our density. So if we take this up, it gets more dense. You can see less down. And then volume step length. This is basically like inside the volume how many steps it's taking. So let's go ahead and just drag that down. You'll see what happens. Now you can see the steps are a lot shorter, so it's going to absorb more light a lot faster, giving our volume a bigger scale, essentially. If you were to look at this looks like a kind of a just like some atmosphere, and then we start taking this down, it starts to look a lot bigger because the light's taking so much, it's scattering so quickly through the beginning surface right there. So that's what that kind of does right there. You can also play with your absorption. So if we absorb, let's just grab like a blue, or actually it'd be better if we did something like, let's do yellow. Why not? So now we're absorbing yellow. We can also scatter. So absorption is the color it's going to absorb light, and then it's going to have that color when it absorbs light. And scattering is going to absorb light, and it's going to scatter the light, and it's going to scatter this color. So let's do like a blue to offset that. There we go. And they're really fighting with each other right now, but you can kind of see we're getting this weird effect. These are really fun to do complementary colors. So let's go here. Let's throw red in, and just like that. And then we just play around. A lot of this has to be mixed properly, but you can kind of see, there we go, we're getting a different look. So scattering phase, basically all that's doing is saying, hey, are we going to scatter towards the camera or away from the camera, essentially. So that's can help you kind of get some looks. Also, you might notice invert absorption. If you want that off, you can turn it off or on. It gives you a really quick way to switch your colors back and forth, just like that. And then we have our emission tab right here, and this is really just for emitting. You might think, why would your volume need to emit something? Well, if it was smoke or fire or an explosion, some kind of explosion would be perfect example of that. So you would have this volume emission tab right there. That's what that's for. If you're just wondering, you might not understand, like, hey, why do we need emission? It's really just for explosions. You can also do fog medium, fire medium right there. So they got some different presets for you to play around with. And then I'm just going to go back to the default settings. Okay, that's cool and all, but how'd you get that weird cube effect out of this block? I mean, it doesn't look like we'll be able to take any chunks out of this. It's just a square. Well, that's kind of the fun part about this. So what this will allow you to do, what Octane allows you to do in Cinema 4D, I'm going to go ahead and turn on that red light now. I'm just going to make our volume a little bit denser again. So we'll take that density up and the step length down. There we go. So we can just kind of get this scattering medium. I mean, that is essentially what scattering medium is the volume, but we're getting that effect with the volume. So that's cool. So what are we gonna do here? What do we do to get that kind of cube effect? And really all you need to do is go to generate, and then there's a texture option right here, and we're just gonna click noise. And nothing's gonna happen at first, of course, because you can see our noise right here, and it's not that really contrasting. For volumes, we need the noise to be super contrasty. So let's go ahead and crank that up all the way. Now you can start to see we're eating pieces of this cube out like that. And you might be thinking that looks a little blocky. So this is where you gotta be careful, guys. Let's start stepping this down. 4, 3. Make sure you save if you're gonna keep going lower. 2. I dare say we do 1.8. Okay. It looks like we're using 6 gigs of memory, so let's go down to 1.5. Okay, we're using up a lot more memory now, so let's go to 1.4. And I think if we go down to 1.2, well, I'm just gonna keep walking it down. Okay, I'm scared, so, and I don't really need to go any lower for the purposes of this video, so I'm just gonna leave it at that for now. If you want to, if you're brave, save your file and just keep going down and see how low you can go. So there we go, like that. There we have it, but it might not be the effect you want, so let's just change this right here. Let's just drag up that global scale. And there you go. Like, you get these really cool effects. Super awesome. This will kill your render times, though, because volumes are really noisy inside of Octane. They're still figuring that out. I have been reading up. They have some... they're going to try to bring volumes on in RTX. I don't know how they're going to do that, because I think you have to have triplanar geometry to ray trace, or quad geometry to ray trace. So who knows? I'm not a developer. I just know that's what they said. So we'll see. And you can see the actual pixels right here. Look at the volume pixels, just like that. So that is just the Octane volume that they give you, but there's more ways to create volumes and cheaper ways. So we'll talk about that. Okay, so you want to have volume in your scene, but maybe your render times are already so ridiculous, or you're on a deadline and you need to get this render done as fast as possible, or maybe your scene's too big and your computer can't hold all that voxel memory. Well, there is another option for you. This is not, in my opinion, you can make it look good, but this is not the best, prettiest way to do volume, but it's still an option I have had to use a couple times. So let's go to it. First you need to do is go to objects and then do HDRI environment. So we created an environment right here, just like that. And you can see, you'll probably just like everything will be closed. If you go to this medium right here and you just click add fog, there you go. You got it just like that. So now you can play around with your medium radius and take the fog down or up and kind of just move around some. I'm going to turn off this red light because it's kind of making it hard to see our fog. And then let's just crank the medium radius up more. There we go. So now we can kind of see that fog going just like that. And it is hard to see. There we go. When you're in the medium where the light is, it's kind of hard to tell, but there it is right there. And it does the job perfectly. But we can go to scattering medium right here and look. Does this look a little familiar? It should, because we have our voxel volume step length. So that's how dense it is. Or not really how dense it is, but how fast it's stepping. And then we have the density right here. So we can take that, do something like that. We also have our same parameters right here. We have our scattering. If we go to RGB spectrum and just, let's say we want to scatter red color. There we go. We got a red fog. We want to scatter green color. There we go. We got green fog. So yes, this is really a great option. And sometimes it will look exactly like the regular volume. So sometimes it's just smart to use this, because you will get just more not more realistic, but just more quicker results for the same amount of realism. So This option is here to you. I just wanted to say, hey, it's just right here under the medium tab. Really simple. You get a little bit less parameters and stuff, but like I said, if you're on a deadline, it's really, really important that you use this, because this will be the faster way to render. It's cheaper, it's using less memory, it's going to give your GPU more memory and texture, so it's not going to have to access your CPU's RAM for those extra texture memories. So that is that. And now we're going to move on to something really cool, VDBs. Okay, so what is a VDB? It is basically the same thing as the Octane volume right here, Octane Fog volume, except it allows us to load already made volumes into it. So it's essentially like taking a Photoshop file and then pulling in an image already into it instead of making your own. So that can have a lot of advantages, because probably there are definitely effects you can't get inside the Octane Fog volume that you would want, like for example really realistic clouds or really detailed clouds or certain looks, or even image sequences of like smoke and stuff. And by image sequences, of course, I mean VDB sequences, but you know, they're just 3D images essentially. So what we need to do that is go to Octane VBD volume, and then there we go. It's right there. Go to VDB, load in the file. I already loaded one in, so I won't have to do that again. And you can just see right here, once I flick it on, it's got to load into the memory. There it is right there. We have this cloud. And probably most likely you will have to scale your volume up. I had to scale mine up 200, 200, 200 on all accesses, but hey, look at that. We got this really nice cloud, super high resolution, really cool. You can load anything in, but I was just using this as an example. And again, we have all these different parameters. So let's go to volume medium right here. And then we can change the density of this cloud. So we can make it not so dense or really, really dense, and change the volume step length. And you can see it can get really not so ugly. I mean, I guess it is kind of ugly, but just like really dense. So we're about to start seeing the voxels in it. Let's go ahead and do a quick little render view. Yeah, you can see the little tiny 3D pixels. I mean, if you're going for that look, go ahead and go for it. But, you know, like I said, that's going to take a lot of render time. So something like this looks pretty well. RGB spectrums, again, they'll do the same thing. So if you remember, we went over it the first time, you got it now. You can do it for anything. And let's say you do something, you don't like it, just click right here and click clear. And there you go. Pretty simple. This was not, I mean, like, these VDB files are hard to make, but you can find a lot online in Houdini, and I'm working on some in Houdini right now, so I'll be releasing some soon, hopefully. Houdini is a beast, so we'll see on that. But yeah, I just wanted to show you all this real quick, and if you want to, you can scale it up even more. So let's go here. The coordinates, let's do like, let's see, 999. And we're just going to put this inside of it like that. And then we can go to medium right here. And then let's go to right here, volume medium. And let's just change that density down a little bit. So we essentially have a kind of just like a randomized fog, kind of the same thing as before, but you can have a little bit more control because you can make your own VDB files from that. So that just covers, you know, everything you need to know about volumes. We haven't talked about render optimizations yet. That's coming in the next chapter. But in my experience, you do not want to do path tracing in volumes because it is extremely, extremely slow. And there's really no difference between direct lighting, GI diffuse, and path tracing when it comes to volumetric heavy scenes. So we'll talk about render settings and optimizations, everything, but just know that path tracing takes forever inside of volumes. So just keep that in mind when optimizing your scene. Okay, as promised, I told you we'd be breaking down a scene, so we're going to be breaking down a scene that has a lot of volumetrics heavy in it. So first, let me turn off the volumetrics, and you'll see what we're working with. Yeah, does not look too good. And if I turn off the clouds as well, even though they're technically not volumetrics, we just have this really raw rock, and it doesn't really have any sense of scale. But when we add an atmosphere in, Let's go ahead and let it load back in. It gives us more of a scale, and then as a finaling touch, I just added some little clouds. I basically have this earth cloud texture that I took and then mixed that with a noise to kind of make it not look so much like Earth's clouds, and kind of ramped it a little bit to make it pop. So this is the look we're going for. I can jump out right here so y'all can see on the full scale. This is what we're working with. Obviously, it doesn't look good because I have done some settings and stuff with the camera color and the responses, but nevertheless, there it is right there. So you can really see this looks really nice. We got all this going on, but let's break down how I got this volume to work. So it's actually pretty simple. I just created a atmospheric volume, and then I put this atmospheric holder down in there. And when you use this method, you need to make sure that you turn your holder invisible. Don't turn it off, just turn it invisible, because if it's visible, you're about to see what happens if I refresh this. Maybe nothing will happen this time, but usually you just see a sphere essentially. And okay, it's not doing it this time, but you can see it pop up right here. So it's probably gonna take a while to refresh in Octane, but I'm just gonna turn it off for now. And that's really it right there. That's it. I think I actually do see it coming through right there. Let's turn it all the way off. Just the visibility, just by clicking these little red buttons, you can just do that simply and easily right there. And then to talk a little bit more in depth on this volume, I'm kind of cheating on some things, and I'll kind of talk about that. So we have our light right here, and if we go to our light, you can see it got the temperature cranked up a little bit, and it's a really big light. So we're getting this soft light, which really wouldn't be accurate, but it looks more nicer artistically. So we're just going to leave it there like that because it looks good, and happy with it. So now atmosphere holder, here we go. Let's go to the generate medium. Let's go to medium right here. You can just see my settings. So we're going to be scattering and absorbing these kind of colors right here, this beige-ish color, these oranger colors, because if we aren't, then it's going to be very, very just like a regular gray volume, and that's really not what you're looking for in a Martian atmosphere. And when you're working with volumes like this, reference movies. It's really great to reference real life, of course, but sometimes you're not going for real life like this. This is, look how extreme this is. This surface is so displaced. It would never be like that. But I was going for more dramatic movie look, and not so much hey, like I'm trying to recreate Mars like pixel by pixel. And here's our Martian surface material. It's pretty simple, guys, nothing crazy. We got this grayscale map version, this displacement, and then a diffuse, and I did a glossy right there. Mess around with your specular, and also mess around with your roughness wherever that may be right there. Cranked it all the way up to 1. We're talking about a planet with no water or anything, so it's going to be very rough. It's not going to be smooth at all. So that's what I was messing with right there. And then, of course, we must talk about the clouds, because that does contribute a lot to this scene. So you can see right here, node editor. We'll go ahead and open that up. And pretty simple stuff. Again, we have this turbulence. I just texture projected it and scaled a little bit. That's going to be our bump right there. And then we have an opacity, and I just added a gradient and kind of clamped it down so where our clouds would come up. And then under here, we're just working with a regular diffuse. And then our color, you can see right there, we just gave it a beige color as well, because it is a Mars cloud. And that's the scene. You might think that this scene's super complicated and confusing, and you don't know what's going on. But in reality, it's not anything like that. It's super simple. I did also subdivide the Martian landscape by 1, just because it kind of was looking a little pixelated and stuff, because we only have 8K texture, and I was like, I should push that a little bit further because it's not looking too good. So that helped a little bit, and you can see it looks really nice from far away. If we get close, it would be pretty pixelated and undesirable, but nevertheless, we don't have to worry too much about that, because this is kind of a far away shot. If you're going to do a close-up shot, you probably want to matte paint a Mars surface or photo bash a Mars surface and create your own displacement. in color maps and bump maps if you want bump maps as well out of that. Bump map really didn't look too good on this, so I just decided to leave it off. It kind of messed with this beautiful reflection we had going on because of these steppings of the pixels right here. It took a lot of that reflection and shine off of it. So I was like, no bump map, just going to use it as a displacement. And you can use a grayscale bump map as a displacement too, technically, if you need to. And that's that, guys. It's really that simple. Like, it's nothing crazy going on here. You can see voxel size 2, medium. I took that down some. Hopefully this does not crash on y'all's computers. I'll take it up to 2.5. But I'd like to take it down for final renders. We might just want to do 3 for now. Turn that back up if you get it. You're gonna probably want it a little bit higher, and then that's it. But you know, dialing in this stuff is really important right here. Let's go to the medium tab again, volume medium. Make sure if you're trying to recreate a planet or whatever you're trying to do, make sure you dial in these colors, because a lot of times, yeah, volume does really just scatter as gray or as like a white color, but we're in CG, we can cheat a little bit and it can help us get our look, because if we would have just used a super orange light on this, it would have messed with our diffuse color, and then we'd have to color correct that, and then that probably would have changed something else, and we'd have to fix that, and it's just been a big mess. So sometimes it's better, hey, attack the volume, get it there, don't be trying to be, you know, exactly recreating reality perfectly, because sometimes you'll just create this chain reaction of having to fix stuff that you really could have just fixed by changing your absorption and scattering. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So that's everything about the volumes. For now, we'll be moving on to render optimizations and kind of how you can get some really, really cool animations and stuff rendered out really quick, because a lot of times, like for me, one of my biggest choke points with this is just getting the renders out in time. So we'll be talking about that in the next lesson.